Good morning, everybody. Hello, I hope you're all doing well. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Mara Lattori and I run the Funky Sport platform. So, as you see from the title of this video, I have a little bit of a major life announcement that I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about. And it is why I decided to quit my government job. So I'm gonna go ahead and start from the beginning. My background is in community development, particularly from an urban standpoint. So with that being said, when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree, I was taking classes that had to do with sociology and urban studies because I was not only interested in human social behavior, but especially how that tied into the urban context and, you know, possibly seeing what solutions can happen in order to improve the quality of people's lives. So with all that being said, after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I wound up working for a nonprofit community development corporation in program development and community arts. I loved it, but I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner, so I decided to go back to school and pursue my master's degree in urban and regional planning. In order to become an urban planner or a city planner, I really wanted to really dive deep and dive into, you know, a lot of these nuances and interests. And overall, you know, going back to grad school, I was 25 years old, and at the time it was a really important time for me to like step back from the professional world and kind of reset and reboot and figure out who I was. So it was a really great, nurturing and challenging time. So I will say that as I was approaching my graduation from my university's master's in urban and regional planning program, I was literally at this crossroads. So towards the end of my degree there, I was self-employed. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always had that kind of spirit in me, and I remember I was doing a couple gigs that were pretty promising. So it was either choose the path of just continuing to go self-employed and just do my thing, or take the other path. Here I am, I got my degree, my master's degree in urban planning, and go the professional route and find a job in planning where I'm either doing city planning or environmental planning, one sort of aspect in urban planning. So I was really kind of interested in, if I were to choose this route, to either work within the nonprofit sector or the public sector. So I remember nearing the time of my graduation just freaking out, like, oh my gosh, you know, even though I'm doing these self-employed type of opportunities, I have nothing professional lined up. So I remember freaking out. I live in the Tampa Bay area, just for some geographic context. So I love this area. I've lived here my whole life, so I really wanted to be rooted. So I was looking for jobs within a 30-mile radius of where I was living. I wasn't really in a position where I wanted to move and relocate to another city or region. It's just not where I was. So I remember I just like threw out my resume to at least 20 or 25 different nonprofit organizations and agencies. I was interested in looking for work that either was, you know, city planning, community development, or community arts, because I am also a visual artist, so I do have this interest in community arts and arts management, just to put that out there. And I remember I wound up not just getting an interview, but getting a job offer from a local municipality, a smaller city within this region. And who I worked for doesn't really matter. So, you know, I worked in the job. It was good. It was fine. I learned a lot, especially within the field of planning. And the thing is, though, the thing about me is that I am very creatively wired, and that is part of me being an artist and a visual artist. So, you know, I was doing a lot of work on dealing with regulations and just helping the public go through a regulatory process, whether it was with topics such as rezonings or variances or historic preservation. If you're a planner, you understand some of these concepts. You know, there was still something in me that wanted more. And around this time, just for context, I used to be a visual artist and a painter. I always have been, but I just wasn't very active in creating. And I just remember thinking like, man, I am creatively malnourished. I am starving and I need to do something about this. So I will say that I did get involved with some local organizations around the time and some local movements, especially that dealt with art and creativity. So that was very fulfilling to me. And I remember, let's flash forward to December of 2018, which was almost a year ago. And around this time, you know, I was always cooking, and one thing that I've always loved, where some of my creative spark comes from, is in the kitchen. If you follow my platforms with The Funky Spork, you'll see that. And the reason I'm mentioning December is because I remember around this time, and prior to that, on my Instagram and on my Facebook, I would constantly post photos of not just me cooking in the kitchen, but some of my recipes. It was just something I enjoyed doing for the hell of it, for fun. By the way, parents, if you have any kids, I might use some language here and there, so just as a heads up. And I just remember prior to December, just kind of thinking about the idea like, I want to maybe create a separate Instagram account where I am posting my recipes. So, you know, I remember reaching out to my Facebook community, like, hey, Facebook, what do you think of this idea? Maybe I would, you know, incorporate some of my own recipes. And at the time I was eating in a predominantly plant-based manner. I'm not vegan or vegetarian, but I want to eat more plant-based and really kind of share this journey with my friends and family. And also, clearly, as you see, I'm not a size 0, I'm a plus size woman. And I also want to create a platform that celebrates body positivity. So these are my two motives. So, you know, remember putting that out there and my friends and family being supportive of that. So I remember shortly after, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and create this platform. And I remember trying to think about like what it was that I was going to create this platform based off of, you know, knowing these two ideas. So I was trying to think of a name for this platform, and I was like, okay, what's something catchy that no one else has thought about? So I was thinking about my own, you know, kind of quirky personality. I was like, I'm kind of zany, I'm kind of like quirky, but I'm kind of funky too. I love retro things, I love disco music. So I was like, okay, let me think of that homage. So funky. I was like, okay, what about something with food? So the idea of spork came. So I remember putting the names Funky Spork together, and I was like, that has a nice ring. So then I was like, The Funky Spork. So that is what I decided to create my Instagram profile based off of. And it's still there, it's thriving to this day, so follow that. But anyway, this is all gonna kind of circulate back to the subject matter of this video. So I remember I started posting my recipes on there and just, you know, posting dishes and inspiration, and it went really well. People were starting to like the profile, and people were starting to like that, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to, I would say maybe within a month or so afterwards of creating Instagram, I created a Facebook page for this, because people were kind of interested in learning more about the recipes. I was like, you know what, I could write the recipes on my Instagram page, but I could also create a website where I have my recipes in one landing page. So I also decided within that month period to create a blog, and I was like really into what I was doing. So there was birthed the Funky Spork platform, where I had my Instagram, my Facebook page, and my blog. And really the Instagram and Facebook page kind of served as this landing platform for my blog, although I'd promote exclusive content. And I was just, you know, I was working my full-time job doing urban municipal planning, but I was just really starting to get into this new platform that I was creating. I was just like, wow, like this is a lot of fun. I just remember finding so much joy and just thinking like, this could go somewhere. And I just remember that was like a small thought in my head, and I always kind of held on to that, like, okay, this is interesting. So, you know, I just kind of kept doing my thing, posting pictures, creating really awkward, clumsy content, as you'll probably see in some of my past posts. And I would say maybe February, I will never forget that I posted a picture. It was like some simple dessert. I think it was like something that had to do with rolled dates, and using that for a natural alternative to sweet food. a colleague of mine that works at a very prestigious local children's museum, you know who you are, I remember them commenting saying, you should do a children's cooking demonstration for the museum. And I was like, whoa, that's cool. It wasn't something I thought about, you know, like bringing my talent for cooking out to the community at large. I thought to myself originally, you know, it'd be cool to become a blogger or maybe even a YouTuber, even though I have a small channel on YouTube. Nevertheless, that was kind of like where I was kind of thinking that this could go, because I was also becoming really interested in, you know, social media content creation and video editing. But this new opportunity was kind of like opening itself up. And I remember around this time, I'd say within a month span, not just this person, but there was someone from another local organization that had reached out to me with interest in doing cooking classes, and a local farm that has a local farmers market that also reached out to me to see if I would be interested in doing a cooking demonstration over at their farmers market. And mind you, just for some context, I was starting to create video tutorials on my platform. So once again, I had my Instagram, Facebook, and now YouTube. I was like, you know, people like videos. And I love watching YouTube videos, so maybe I can create some, but it seemed to be getting traction with people. So the moment these 3 different avenues started to reach out to me to go out to the community and educate the community on how to create recipes, especially recipes that were healthy and that utilized fresh, local, seasonal ingredients, I remember things were starting to click. And from the moment I did my first couple demonstrations, one at the Children's Museum and then one at the farmer's market, I was really enjoying that. I remember just getting nervous like before those happened, because I was like, oh my god, like what if I screw up and I burn something in front of a million people and then they start to laugh at me? You know, sometimes I feel like we let fear get in the way of us doing things, but I was like, you know what, let me just go for it. And they went really smoothly, and I just remember just feeling like myself being out there in the community setting up my portable kitchen. Yeah, I actually went to IKEA. I remember investing money on this like little set of induction burners and a little skillet just so I can start this venture, because I was like, I have a feeling that this is not going to be the last time people reach out. So it started to happen again. I started to have more cooking demo opportunities, and I remember March of 2019 was approaching, and you know, I'm gonna kind of ramble a little bit in this video, but stick with me. 2019 is a big year for me, and there are a couple major reasons. First of all, March was going to be the month that I was going to be turning 30 years old, and I was also going to be getting married this year too. Yes, to a wonderful, wonderful person. So I'm very happy with him. So these are 2 big milestones happening in one calendar year. And I remember, once again, going back to March, my fiance and I were not just celebrating our my 30th birthday, but we were also celebrating our 3-year anniversary being together, because we started dating the day before my birthday, prior to that 3 years beforehand. So we decided to go on a special trip to New Mexico. And it was just wonderful and amazing. And I remember just being immersed in a lot of amazing local regional food. Around that time we went on a food tour, and we just really dug in and just ate a lot of poblano chiles and just a lot of the local food offered there. I remember, you know, telling my fiance, like, hey babe, I know that I just started Funky Sport, but I really see this going somewhere, and it's something that I really like. I've got something going on. Once again, I remember going back home and pulling out my budget spreadsheet, because I have a budget spreadsheet because I like to do my best to adhere to a monthly budget to manage my own finances, and looking at it and really taking a hard look, thinking this question: how much do I need to survive on a month? What do I need from a dollar amount to live on each month? That would include my rent, my bills, my utilities, and student loans, and maybe a little money here and there to go eat out, because I'm a foodie. And I remember after calculating this cost, saying, okay, so this is the dollar amount. So what would it be like for me to have 6 months worth of livable like a cost of living for 6 months. How much is that amount? So I remember once again going back to my finances and like crunching numbers and like, okay, so for 6 months, I need to make this amount of money. And I remember just thinking to myself like, okay, this is what I need to live on. And I remember the reason I'm thinking that is because, you know, to be completely honest with you, and this is not a video to complain about my employer because they were great and wonderful, but at the end of the day, even with my master's degree and even with a comfortable, steady job, I didn't quite feel fulfilled in my role. I didn't feel creatively challenged, and I just knew after working there for a year and a half that that's not where I wanted to stay. And I just remember thinking like, Funky Spork is gonna go somewhere. So let's just say for the past few months, I had been working my ass off and saving money like crazy in order to build my living savings account. This was going to be my savings account that I was going to be essentially living off of for 6 months. And I'll go into why I did that later. So let's just say flash forward to a few months, and I really just knew that I didn't want to stay with my employer anymore. And maybe some of you have been through that, where you just know that where your professional destiny may lie and your interests don't align with the mission and goals of your department or your organization. So you come to this crossroads like, okay, so you either just stay and you keep earning income, even if it is important work, you just do it. And I understand a lot of people are in that position where they have to. Either you have kids, you have to make sure that you provide them with a good meal, or there are many reasons. So I don't want to ever dismiss that. But then there are some people, fucking trains. Anyway, then there are other people that, and I kind of fall within this line, that you have to do a job where you feel passionate about that. And it's not even about making a lot of money or having a stable paycheck, but it is really that chance where you need to pursue your dreams, given the fact that not every job is luxurious. But I saw entrepreneurial potential in the Funky Spork, so let's go back to saving money. In this time, I start to develop a business plan. Let's go back to these few months where I was just saving money like crazy, just living very minimalistically and simply just so I can have this pile of money to live off of. And the reason I was doing that is because going back to this entrepreneurial spirit that I shared with you earlier on this video, it was really starting to breathe in. People were starting to take notice in the community with what I was doing with Funky Spork. Not just on the screen, but off the screen and into the community. And one of the things that was, doors that were opening with Funky Spork were involving topics that I was actually really passionate about. One was community outreach, program development, and connecting people to land. Like, where does their food come from? How's it cultivated? And how can we eat in a more equitable, sustainable manner? And these are topics that I'm interested in exploring. So I remember around this time thinking like, okay, so I'm interested in these different nuances in addition to cooking, but I'm also an urban planner by education and by trade. And I spent a lot of damn money on this master's degree. So how do I marry these two different worlds together? And mind you, the only person that really knew about me eventually making this plan to transition out was my fiance. So I remember just once again just kind of going into my business plan thinking like, okay, what can I do to marry these topics? And I thought, okay, so maybe what I can do is continue to do demonstrations and even cooking classes, but teach people in these classes, have an educational academic standpoint where I am educating the community at large about the benefits of eating seasonally and locally, and also educating people about how urban planning and land use intersects with their food. The one thing I do have is this education in planning, so there's got to be a way that it can intersect. So I was really playing around with that, and I feel like that really started to take light when I did a cooking demonstration this past summer when I was invited by our local library to do a class on the benefits of eating seasonally and locally. That was the theme they wanted me to touch on. So I remember doing that. I prepared this whole lesson plan where I did a mini lecture on the environmental, economic, and health benefits of eating seasonally and locally. And then by the end of it, we had this amazing meal that really focused and highlighted using local Florida seasonal produce. While that wasn't the entirety of the ingredients, that's what I used. I remember that was really the moment where things were like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so I'm just continuing to save money like crazy, and to very recently where I just came to this crossroads where, you know, I wasn't very happy with my job. And, you know, once again, it wasn't the employer and it wasn't my employees. It was just really thinking about where I wanted to be and what I was currently doing at work, and just thinking, this isn't meshing. It's just not. So I just remember it was a Friday where I decided to finally make the decision to make the big jump. The only way I could really explore Funky Spork and the growth of it was if I were to dedicate time in order to cultivate this platform and evolve it into a business and a movement. And the only way I can really do that and give it the attention it deserves is by dedicating time and energy. And so I remember thinking, I need to make the big jump and I need to do it soon. I can't stay with my job any longer. So I remember that Friday telling my fiance, babe, I'm gonna make the big jump, and assuring him that this was something that I'd done before. I am a 30-year-old woman and I've always had the ability to make money. I am grateful that I've never really been in a lot of debt other than student loan debt, but I'm good at handling my finances. So I assured him, and he's supportive of me. My whole family is. So I remember finally, you know, deciding that I was going to give my employer a 1-month notice because I value them and the work that I do is significant. We're a small department, and I personally didn't feel like giving them a 2-week notice was enough time. So I remember the day that I made that decision, I remember just going home and writing my letter of resignation. And then flash forward to mid that week, there were a couple days that the office was closed due to hurricanes, Florida. And I knew that that day I needed to talk to my supervisor and let them know. I remember just being really nervous about doing that because you never know how your employer is going to react. I mean, the worst is that they can fire you or just like really grill it to you, like, what the hell are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. But I just remember, like, I was trying to like rehearse what I was gonna say, but I remember coming to work really early that day. Typically I have to report at 8 a.m., but I remember just coming in like 7 a.m. Like, I need to just prep myself, I need to like hype myself. And then my supervisor eventually came to the office, and I remember telling them, like, I need to see you. So they let me into the office, and it was a closed door meeting because that's what I requested. And I remember just sitting at their table and just being really nervous and really shaky. And so they saw the importance, that they sat down with me with a notepad. And I remember bringing this up, asking them, so by the way, this was 3 years of me working with my employer. And I remember just, you know, when I was filling out my annual employee evaluation, that evaluation asking me what my career goals were. And I just remember I kept thinking to myself prior to this, like, it's not to stay in this department. It is to eventually do planning, and this is what I filled out very honestly in this evaluation, to do planning that focuses on social equity and food systems. So I brought that up to my manager, and I was like, okay, so remember I wrote that. And so I had segued in just telling them the truth. And that's what you have to do. If you are in a situation where you feel that you don't want to stay with your employer, but you know you have a backup plan, you just need to tell them the truth. Of course, be polite and be thankful, but that's what I did. I didn't have a script. I just remember telling my employer, like, this, my professional aspirations and what I'm doing here no longer align. And that's exactly what I said in those ways. Very respectful, and it was actually a really good discussion. And I remember them asking me, okay, well, if you don't mind me asking, what are your plans? afterwards. So I told them that I was going to pursue the funky spork. And they were already familiar with work I was already doing in the community because I was building a positive reputation with education outreach through cooking. And they were supportive. And at the end, they said, you need to do what you're passionate about. So, you know, once again, I gave my employer a 1-month notice. And in that time, a lot of people were curious and they were intrigued. Folks, I'm just gonna say this. If you find yourself in a position where you are an entrepreneur and you are about to make a big jump, people are gonna be very, very intrigued by what you're doing. This is a great opportunity for you to work on your elevator speech, because I had told many, many people many times what I was going to be doing. And yeah, I would say for the most part, people were really supportive and excited about the fact that I was going to make this big journey and this big jump. At least people weren't skeptical to me in front of my face. There may have been some behind my back, but I would say the biggest question people had for me is, you know, why are you doing this? And how are you going to make money? So if you're in that situation, kind of be prepared for people to ask you some of those questions. And you don't have to give people an explanation. You don't. It's up to you. That is for you to take the time to figure out, but that's kind of the experience that I had. So yeah, I gave a 1-month notice. It was the best that I felt I could do, but it's what I needed to do in the time in order to really pursue this dream I have to essentially create this educational platform where I am not only developing amazing original recipes, but teaching people about how planning intersects with food and what are the benefits of eating seasonally and locally, and how do I spread this message out to the community in the forms of cooking demonstrations, classes, and workshops. So these are a lot of nuances that I have been folding together in this business plan that I've been creating. So once again, the big thing that I am now doing is I've decided to make the jump. I am living off of my savings. So let's knock on wood that this will be lucrative and successful, and that I won't have to live in this meager amount of savings for the entirety of these few months. But it was the decision that I had to make. I had to get to the point where I was honest with myself in making the decision to leave a very stable, well-paying, cushy job in order to pursue something that I'm very passionate in. And once again, I'm a 30-year-old person. I'm not getting any younger. I'm a passionately, creatively driven person that does have leadership capabilities. I have a lot of past experience, not just with my education, but in my own professional journey. And I feel like this is where I need to be at this point in my life in order to really watch this cultivate and blossom into something great. I have a good idea of where I want this to go, but clearly I'm not a fortune teller and I don't know for sure where this will ultimately wind up. Because, you know, the future is uncertain. And I have to say that even for those that do have a stable, comfortable 8-to-5 or 9-to-5 job, you know, nothing's guaranteed. The market doesn't care what's going on, and neither does the economy. So you could be in a stable job and then it can all wither away. And it's not to scare anyone, but the point is that we all have to take risks at some point in our life. And whether your risk is making a big, professionally risky, financially risky jump like I am doing now, or whatever else in your life, maybe the risk is learning a new dance move or doing public speaking, whatever that is. I just encourage you to work on that and just cultivate that. Anyway, this is just me being really vulnerable. I wanted to invite you on this entrepreneurial journey. Right now I've just completed week 1 of being in the big jump. Due to the length of this video, I'm gonna post that at another point. But if you are interested in seeing more videos, more content where I kind of invite you into the highs and lows of this brand new journey, please comment below. Otherwise, if maybe you've either worked in the public sector, either as an urban planner or someone else, or you've worked some other kind of full-time job and you've also been considering making the big jump or already have, I would love to hear from you. So please put your comments below Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I've got a lot of other things to do today. It's gonna be a pretty busy day, but that's all I got for now. So if you like this content, please feel free to subscribe and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and on my blog at The Funky Spork and www.thefunkyspork.com for just more updates on the development of that business. But anyway, that's all I have for now. I'll see you all later.